Also, third person omniscient, it's best avoided in using, it's best avoided, but you can also use it in places like travelogue material or day in the life stuff for ancillary characters that don't mean anything. Just limited footprint descriptions. You don't want to do stuff where, again, the voice from heaven is talking constantly about things. But you can elaborate things. There was a shop on the street that sold this, and you're not establishing the form of government for a planet. that's ways to do that. Attend to the conventions. This is a fun thing about writing in a shared universe. Shared universes generate a ridiculous amount of jargon, a lot of words that only exist in that franchise and nowhere else. And some of that jargon is so specific to the universe that if you get it wrong, the readers are gonna go, aha, you don't know it. You're not one of us. You were a hired gun who came in and you never read it, you don't know, you don't play the game, you don't do whatever it is. And so you need to at least know that stuff. Let's read these three sentences here. Han Solo fired his phaser, put up your hand with each one of these if you think something's wrong. Han Solo fired his phaser over the heads of the stormtroopers. What's wrong?
Phaser.
Captain Kirk fired his blaster at the menacing shape.
Blaster.
Koloth aimed his phaser at the attackers.
Disruptor.
Disruptors. The Klingons do not have phasers. In fact, every alien has a disruptor, good or bad. They do not have phasers. Okay, you think you're good? Yeah, there you go, that's what it should be. We'll try this. All right, we're gonna set this story immediately after The Cage. That is that pilot for Star Trek. Confident that he wasn't violating the Prime Directive, Captain Pike gave the order for Enterprise to fire its phasers into the rift. How many problems are there with that sentence? Okay, you're on fire. There was no Prime Directive at that era. Also, there were no phasers in that era. That changes between The Cage and the first year of the 5-year mission. And again, nobody expects you to know that. In fact, both have changed before the beginning of Strange New Worlds. But again, that is all stuff that I had to know once I was wallowing in it. But again, I knew it. I did the research, and they help you with it. It's a terminology history. This is where you go get a beta reader. If you're allowed to have one, they don't always allow it because sometimes these things are under NDAs. But getting a beta reader, somebody who knows your franchise. I've got a beta reader who also happens to be a proofreader that I've worked with for years, who reads all of my Star Wars and Star Trek and Batman stuff, because he's able to say, yeah, that's not how a Batarang works, or that's the wrong thing. And of course, once you actually get to the publisher, they have people who will help you. There'll be people who will actually say, no, this isn't like this is like that. But it really helps to have redundancy. But here's the flip side of jargon. It's tempting to use that jargon to belong, or show that I belong in the universe, show that I know this stuff. But jargon is a double-edged sword. Its overuse can seem gratuitous. How do you do, fellow Trekkies? Well, I can read a story that is written for one of these universes, and I can usually tell within 5 pages, not even 5 pages, 5 paragraphs, whether it's a first timer writing in this world, because of all of the, what phrase would we use? All of the franchise signaling that they're doing, saying, hey this, hey that, hey this, hey that. And I know that some of my colleagues believe that the more of that you put in, the more it feels like you're in the universe. I think it feels jarring and gratuitous at a certain point. One of the reasons is that every time you use the jargon, you have limited your audience to the readers you've already got. So, one of the things that when I did that New Dawn novel, which was rebooting more or less Star Wars, we chucked a lot of words out that were jargony words. So we got the word turbo lift and we threw it away because it wasn't a Star Wars word anyway. We stole it from Star Trek. That came from Brian Daley. A refresher for bathroom Again, nobody knew what a refresher was unless you were in the club of readers. There were a ridiculous number of alien species that had never been shown on the screen. And you could show them in comics and explain what they were, but it was really difficult to do in prose. It's better to remember to get the feel of writing Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever happens to be right. Here's a couple of choices here, and let's talk about Kanan's eyes, every bit of as blue as the coral on Dathomir, narrowed as if he were Naga Sadao looking at his first lignin crystal on Phi-Gon 3. Choice 2 is Kanan squinted. Well, obviously that first one is purple prose. It's ultraviolet. I mean, it's not good. But let's look at everything we've done in the poor reader. Kanan's eyes, every bit as blue as the coral on Dathomir. How blue is that? Narrowed as if he were Naga Sadao. Who is that? Looking at his first lignin crystal. What is that? On Phi-Gon 3. Where is that? None of that is necessary to actually communicating what you want to talk about. Putting in some is fine, putting in too much is terrible. This is another trick where the famous fictional trope. Everybody thinks this is a shortcut to showing like you belong in the universe. And again, a number of my colleagues think that, well, it should be done because you're writing about characters who are in this future. So obviously, they're going to follow this thing of Spock in the TV show, talking about the millions who died in World War I, the millions who died in World War II, and the millions who died in World War III, because that's part of the context of his history. But constantly, we're getting, well, of course, the greats are Rembrandt and Van Gogh and Squamulus Blue from Ceti Alpha 7 or whatever it is. And it's always jarring. It always calls attention to itself. It always has that feel of you're trying a little bit too hard to belong here. And so I direct you back to a lot of the old pulp fiction in the 1940s and 50s, where they thought the shortcut to making things sound alien was to give a common thing a crazy name. Hand me the Fedochrome. What you mean, the spoon or whatever it is? I mean, it would always be something like that. So just try to write for Earthlings whatever you can. You're going to make mistakes. I look at it like a baker, where you eat your mistakes. That's a scene from Knights of the Old Republic. And I made a lot of mistakes in the Knights of the Old Republic series because there was a video game out there, there were other comics out there, there were other novels that would eventually be out there. Is sharing the space. And what eat your mistakes means is that you take past errors and turn them into story opportunities. It grants you, the writer, the use of 6 words of incredible power. Oh yeah, I meant to do that. 7 words of incredible power. Oh yeah, I meant to do that. And see, that now looks like I planned it. Well, okay, I have people coming up all the time because the Knights of the Old Republic series, again, is which I have a 7.5-pound book downstairs. I wrote it over the course of 5 years. The history was self-repairing constantly because I was figuring out I had screwed something up, and then I figured out a way to make the past version correct and make both versions correct. Here's an example of one of the characters in that series. This is Brian Ching's original design for the character Jerael. Jerael was going to be this warrior woman from the Arcanian species. I requested the drawing, we requested the drawing, and this is Brian Ching's original design for her. And we thought, this is awesome, this is beautiful, this will make a great cosplay for somebody one day, which it ended up doing. But then we had a problem because I said she was an Arcanian. Arcanians look like that. Arcanians do not have pupils. They have those sort of blumped out orphan Annie eyes. Arcanians, their skin tone is different. She has this alabaster skin. Arcanians have webbed fingers. She does not. Arcanians do not have pointy elf ears. She does. Arcanians also never wear tattoos. She's got plenty. And we thought, well, we can change her into one of them. and make the artist do more work and put the book even further behind. Or I could do a story where she discovers that she's from a different subspecies and she can actually discover the place she came from. I can do a whole nother story where we discover that the marks on her face are actually a language and it has to do with her history. And then I said, well, the ears turn out to come from yet another thing. I got 3 plot lines out of that. And everybody who read it were like, man, he got that complete. In the beginning, we were taking javelins. That's not an Arcadian. And it's like, well, by the end, you know, often things that people think are errors, sometimes they're things they just don't know yet because they haven't read the explanation. And then sometimes we just haven't had time to put the explanation in. But this is a thing. You can eat your mistakes and come up with ways to make story funner out of these things. Never surrender canon. This is the first thing that my friend Mike Stackpole, who I've known for decades, he's written a lot of X-Men novels, or X-Wing novels, and a lot of stuff from BattleTech. I visited him the week before the first issue of Knights of the Old Republic came out. So I was about to get into the Star Wars fandom seriously and start to have to feel the things from people. And he said his 3 words, never surrender canon. What does he mean by this? He said the act of writing, the fact that you are writing these stories, no matter what you do, you have just invalidated somebody's fan fiction. Somebody's story for something that's happening in this time frame has just gone wrong because of you. Or somebody has their own preconceived notions of how certain characters will interact or something like that. And they're not gonna like it. And you know what? You have the license. You were invited, you were hired, you make it your own problem at your own peril. Going out and having to defend it by saying any more than, yeah, just wait, you'll find out. I mean, we're in between Batman Resurrection and Batman Revolution. Things happened in the Batman '89 comics that I had to adjust for in Batman Revolution, but I did, and it all fits again. But again, it was not something where I had to go out and announce. I made a mistake. No, I didn't make a mistake. You just haven't read the whole story yet. But again, you make it your own problem at your peril. You're writing it. You have been assigned to do this thing. This is an official licensed story. You've got the passport, and whatever happens, they own it. Lucasfilm owns it. Disney owns it. They decide who is giving the official words for things, and you just have to sort of suffer those slings and arrows and not hide under your desk. And certainly, I did have my hide under the desk phase. Because you've got the license. But here's another thing. The author really does have to trust those who are running that shared universe to have their backs and to protect them during those 2-3 months, whatever, when people are saying, hey, wait a minute, that character wasn't born that far in the past or whatever like that. Or hey, these characters weren't supposed to be like this. You need to have make sure that you've got support behind you from the franchise. I've actually seen a franchise leave an author out to dry before, and that is the worst possible behavior. Where it is usually a group effort whenever a mistake is made. In my first Star Trek novel, I gave Commander Riker a trumpet instead of a trombone, and that went through 8 people. It just happens. Now, that's not one where I actually went back and figured out a way to say why he had a trumpet that day. But again, this is it was not something where they went out and said, we're never going to use him again because he got a C in music in middle school, which I did. And this was it came in handy when I wrote the New Dawn novel, which basically that is the dividing line between Star Wars Legends, which may have happened in part and whole or not at all, and the canon stuff. And one of the reasons they had me do this novel, although I didn't know I was going to be this dividing line until they contacted me halfway through and said, we need you to come out to Lucasfilm and talk to us and do a video for us. They knew that I had worked with the series for 10 years. I had been on the fan boards. Everybody sort of trusted me to, I have things from the Legends era in that book. I figured out ways to start integrating it. And we've been integrating things ever since. When you get involved in one of these projects, find out who speaks for the universe. Find out who the arbiters of continuity are that you're working with. Find out what level of authority they have. And remembering that in licensing situations, there are often things they're not able to tell you about. They'll tell you, don't involve this character, or don't use this planet, but we can't tell you why. Also, keep public discussions about what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do to a minimum. One of my early things working with Star Wars is they said, never tell people what you can't do. Which is like a common question in these events. Have you ever tried to do something and they said no? Why? Because people would immediately go online and say, hey, John Jacksonville was told not to set anything on this planet. They're gonna do something with it. This particularly came up while I was writing Knights of the Old Republic, because at that time, they did not know whether they were doing Coder 3. They did not know whether they were doing the third Knights of the Old Republic game yet. They ended up doing the online role-playing game, and they ended up doing a novel. But again, and I avoided certain things, and I didn't do certain stories in part because of that. Also protect sources and methods. Sounds like I'm a spy, but really, I try to keep the behind-the-scenes discussions private. I don't say what I have access to, sometimes for years later. And again, it is in part because we're in a very litigious world where a leak will get out somewhere or something like that. They have many levels of security on things. Once we got into the era where a leak about a movie could actually drop a stock price, this is where you start taking really seriously. Yeah, I'm not going to walk around with a script for a movie on my laptop or anything like that. Although when I wrote Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the script for that, the comic adaptation for that, we were not allowed to even take the script out of the Lucasfilm building. I had to just make some notes. That was it. But there you go. There will occasionally be conflicts. If you have a great story idea and it collides with something they want to do somewhere else, talk to them. There might be a way to do it. They want good stories too, but they also have other people they've got to answer to. A thing to keep in mind on one of the multimedia ones, like Star Wars or Star Trek, is that these parts of the franchise are running at different speeds. So you can change something in a comic book a lot faster than you can make a change in a movie or a change in a TV series. The Lucasfilm Story Group, the job of it is to try to network all that stuff together, but it is not immediate. The final thing here is, I say, just always remember, how stories connect is not a story. When you get involved in shared universes, again, there is this tendency to say, hey, I'm going to do a story that explains this and this and this, and it ties this and that together, like it's a bunch of Tinker Toys, and that you're trying to wrap everything up. But that's not a story. That is not the journey of the main character or anything. I do explain in Batman Resurrection why the Joker was able to shoot down the Batwing with one bullet. But that was in the course of a bigger story in which it actually made sense when it went in there. Every story must succeed on its own. How stories connect to the larger universe is a bonus. And this is something that I encountered on the Kenobi book. Again, the tendency is to basically, every time you get the right to work on a movie tie-in or TV tie-in or anything like that, to put the universe on shuffle and to just tell the same story over again, except with different characters or different ways. With the Kenobi novel, we were very concerned with my original plot, because the Kenobi novel is a Western. It's actually a Western romance. It is his first month on Tatooine. He's a mysterious stranger who wanders into the desert. The woman who runs the local general store is sure he must have a secret, because why would somebody who looks like Ellen McGregor move to the middle of nowhere? I mean, this is the sole thing. And the story is 90% told through the points of view of other characters, not him. We only hear him in his meditations where he's trying to talk to Qui-Gon. And there are no lightsaber battles. There are no space battles. This is all about a man in pain who thinks he's killed his best friend, trying to realize what his role is now. He can't tell he's on this planet he hates. And he has no idea whether he's going to be here one day, 1 year, or for the rest of his life. And it turns out it's the rest of his life. And we were quite concerned at Random House, believe it or not, the sales department, how people were going to respond to it. It worked out because that's the Spanish version. That is, I think, the French or German version. That's the Russian version. I actually helped with some of the translations on that. That is the Brazilian version, different art. That is the new Brazilian version, different art again. That is the latest reprint version. Because this is Legends, that doesn't mean they're still not reprinting it. They're still reprinting these things. And then there's even a fancy special edition here, a leather-bound thing. And again, 250,000 copies out there. And you know, we tried to do something different. We just did not put the universe.
A few moments later.
The fans have been very helpful. In Lucasfilm, they actually have the official thing, which is called the Holocron, which is kept by Leland G, the keeper of the Holocron. But I start usually with the Wikipedia, and you know there are errors there, but we usually catch them. Star Trek, there's Memory Alpha for the movies and TV shows. There is Memory Beta for the novels. I like to make everything true. So even when there's in my Star Trek novels, I'm not beholden to actually connect to the novels at all. But yeah, I wrote a novel where there's 3 different explanations in previous novels to a certain episode in what happens in a certain episode of the original series. I figured out a way to actually refer to that and sort of refer to all 3 stories. I just didn't have to make them all work. I like making things work. Questions, comments, thoughts, right here.
Is there anything related that you can share related to when a story, for example, gets updated later? So for example, there's this screenshot going around of an updated YA novel where they made a reference to TikTok, and this book was written in like 2000s.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, have you ever done
the franchise decides what the operative version is. So my latest novel, which I don't think I have here, but I've got, is it here? Yes, Living Force. That's the first novel tying into the Jedi Council, first Jedi Council novel. When I was writing that, they cautioned me, be aware that most of what we put in the Phantom Menace dictionary, in terms of the history of the biographies of the Jedi Counselors, most of that was made inoperative with the very next movie because George Lucas decided that Jedi in Attack of the Clones, Jedi would be raised from birth in the order, and also Jedi don't date. So Ki-Adi-Mundi having 5 wives, that's gone. Various other characters who were recruited many years later. Depa Billaba being recruited as a teenager by Mace Windu, that's gone. However, I do have little links to things where characters will say they went back and visited the planet that they were originally from and had some experiences there that made them know what it felt like to be a member of that species or whatever. And so, again, that's me self-preparing. But they will tell you how things have updated or changed when things happen. Because in that case, George runs everything. So at that point, so if he wants to make a change, I should do one more question because I think we're one and one, real quick, right here.
Did any elements of your Kenobi novel make it into the series?
Yep. Who hasn't seen the show? Cover your ears. I'm almost there. Ellen McGregor and the director did read the novel. There's a video they're talking about on my website. It's very cool. They couldn't use the novel because it's an arrival story. It's set too early. But what happens is the whole thing about Qui-Gon not responding to Obi-Wan, that came from us. We made that decision over some time because we wanted him to feel alone. Two-second answer, or is it? Yeah.
What about conflicting personalities in the continuings?
Well, we're all professionals, so somebody's in charge. At least on the business side, somebody has to make decisions. Anyway, I'm at table 4 in the writer's block, which is directly downstairs. I have lots of books, and I will be down there for the rest of the afternoon, so thank you very much.